Good afternoon, it's now 4:30. According to our official clock, it's now time to begin this particular section of our meeting, and we'd like to welcome Ms. Jessica Salaji here and Al Hackle here. Anyone else for the media? Yep, Dwayne Bryce is here, and but we certainly appreciate the coverage that y'all give to us. Something that we all need to do, I do in particular, if I had it, is turn my cell phone off. So if y'all would turn your cell phone off, we would, or silence it, we would appreciate it. And I'm going to call on Commissioner Stringer, if he will now, to lead us in the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Gracious Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the blessings that you give us every day, Lord. Pray that you will continue to bless us and bless each family that is represented here, each person here, Lord. Pray that you bless this commission and help us to remember you and the things that we do and the decisions that we make, so that everything will be pleasing to you, Lord, in what we do. Pray that you will continue to watch over and bless all our public safety, the fire and EMS and law enforcement and military that throughout this country and community that try to keep us safe every day, Lord. I pray that you will bless them and their families. Ask again that you watch over us and keep us safe here, and we ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me.
I would like to make a note that Commissioner Mosley will be out this evening. He said to take his wife down to the doctor in Savannah, and he will not be able to make it back for either of our meetings supposedly. So we're going to call on County Manager Tom Couch, make our presentation for fiscal year 2025 for the tentative budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we're going to try to wait until the screens for the audience comes up. There we go. All right, this is in as much an update as anything else. As we go through some of the slides, as I always like to say, I don't like to do PowerPoint karaoke you can read, but there may be a couple of things I hit on because we really just finished up this slide deck, I think either late this morning or early this afternoon. So the focus, or I guess plural is foci, is, these are the different kinds of items or bullet points that we're going to try to cover. It's probably bigger than it looks because we're really going to try to focus on the general fund and probably the rural fire fund and to a lesser degree the capital budget. But what we want to try to do is really tell you where we're at. And I think our glide path or our schedule is, as we had in the tentative budget calendar, we want to be able to bring this for your adoption on June 18th. We have every confidence that we can. And we think with your indulgence, we may have a public hearing as early as May the 30th, which I think is a Thursday. And the reason we would do that, I'll just preface it by saying that we know on June 4th, which was the originally scheduled date to have a public hearing, we now know that there's going to be an extremely busy zoning schedule, and that could make the meeting very lengthy. So we think it's probably a good idea to have it on a Thursday evening on the 30th, so there will be just a singular or narrow focus on the budget. and to get citizen and public comment and review. Okay, before I really jump into this, I think the good news is you all know that the staff puts together or has put together for about the last year and a half a composite economic index for the county that takes account of consumer sentiment, housing starts, spending, and employment. And the good news is the Bulloch County economy is doing very, very well right now. I think 5 out of the last 6 quarters, we've had strong growth in the index. We're at a record high of 291.5 with the index, and the base year of the index was in 2013, and we had a long recovery coming from the Great Recession, but now essentially we're peaking, and we think that the Hyundai effect is starting to kick in a little bit, but it hasn't all the way, and we think that'll continue to be gradual over the next 5 years. But what I want to do is pay all of you a compliment for the budgeting model that you've created over the last couple of years. Not only is it award-winning with the Distinguished Budget Award that we get, which is also concurrent with the reporting of the audit that we issue every year. We're one of 10 counties out of 159 in Georgia that get the Excellence in Financial Reporting and the Distinguished Budget Award. So you've really set up this model to be more of a work plan. I think anybody can hang numbers on a piece of paper, but through your thoughtfulness and through your thinking, your cerebral thinking, you focus on values and strategic initiatives. There's just a snapshot of the values that you created to use as a model for budgeting and decision making. And then, of course, the strategic initiatives we try to follow in the budget. And as we go on, you'll see how they're applied in what we've accomplished this year and what we're seeking to accomplish next year. So, I just wanted to remind you that strategically we're working on about really 6 different plans right now. One of them has been completed, the comprehensive plan, although not yet adopted completely by you because it's under state review, but we anticipate the state will approve the structure of the plan and bring it back for final approval. But we're working on all these other plans that are either going to be due at the time of budget adoption or primarily through the end of the calendar year. And of course, you always think about deeply the priorities that you have. And we'll talk about this when we're talking about 24 and 25 together. But you have through first the budget retreat and then the debriefing or the work session we had a few weeks ago. You told us of your priorities and therefore what the budget review team has tried to go back and do through those last 2 meetings, because the debriefing was to have all the departments tell you what your needs are. Or no, not the debriefing, the retreat. And then the debriefing that we had that followed the retreat gave you an opportunity to tell the budget review team what your priorities were. Just a few budget process reminders. Fortunately, we're ahead of schedule. And we did create a much earlier schedule this year because what we wanted to do, we had citizen feedback last year. There were suggestions that that the budget wasn't out early enough where the public could view it electronically or otherwise. And while there are certain steps in budget adoption and budget review that the state requires, we're trying to exceed those. And I think, please help me out, Ms. King, our CFO, but we posted the budget on OpenGov on our website. Is that correct?
We have posted the link on social media so far. It is not yet linked on our website, but if you go directly to that link, it will work, and within the next couple of days, it will be linked to the website. Okay,
it'll be active then. And it's a snapshot of what the budget is today that in part what we're going to be talking about, but then we do have some final reconciliation before we would formally present it to you really on the 23rd, because we have to have a week of time to put public notice out for a public hearing. So you'll have some, well, essentially, I think the numbers we have we're comfortable with right now unless new information comes in, right? Okay, so all of that is saying on that slide is that we're trying to get through earlier. We're trying to give earlier advance notice, and thus far we're satisfied with what we've been able to accomplish with Ms. King's budget schedule. Okay, talking about prevailing cost drivers. Inflation, it's cooling, but it's still persistent. That was part of our economic report that was issued last week, the quarterly report. The Fed is very hawkish, and I don't think they're going to be dropping the Fed funds rate to make borrowing easier until they hit a target I think they call a dual mandate, but they want to get annual inflation rates down to 2%, and it's just not happening yet. But at the same time, there continue to be some post-pandemic, I guess, or it could be economic supply chain issues. We are getting a lot of rolling stock, for example, whether it's fire trucks, ambulances, general purpose vehicles, work trucks, months behind. You know, we put a PO out, and a fire truck can be in excess of a year. Is that right? Or an ambulance. So we have those kinds of disruptions. After doing, HR did a review, and even with the 8% across the board, it seems like we're chasing everybody else, whether it's our peer counties or our neighboring counties, and particularly in public safety. They keep raising rates of pay for deputies and firefighters and EMTs and paramedics. We're not that far behind, but we think we can accomplish with a more modest across the board, you know, getting us more into the market range. But we also have to remember that part of the conditions that create this wage inflation is, again, the competition, and the labor market is very tight. You'll recall in the economic report, you know, we're at full unemployment right now, or full employment, excuse me. We've got the lowest possible unemployment rate that we can possibly have. It isn't a record. I think our records went into the high twos about 25 years ago. It's about 3.1, 3.2 now, but some of that unemployment, or some of the unemployment rate is frictional. So our actual unemployment rate, people who really either can't find work or they don't have the skill set to get a job, is about 2.8 right now. So again, very tight labor conditions. Increasing growth, and that's growth in the community, means increasing service demands. You know, we have some facilities that are aging, and we're trying to address that with the master facilities plan. Not only trying to consider new facilities that are going to be needed in the future, but looking at existing facilities and whether they can be renovated, recommissioned, or decommissioned. And then technology needs continue to increase, but I think we've got one way to try to address that. I think our hardware infrastructure is pretty good, and when I say the soft side of it, I don't mean software, but I think we need a little bit more coordination in our IT effort, but I'll explain that in a minute. We do contract IT out to Georgia Technologies, and they do a great job, but we need a conduit to assist them and assist county departments in a more direct way. Just going to go through some status updates real quick, and this is for the current fiscal year. I've already stated what we've done with the employee base in terms of compensation adjustments, and you'll recall last year across the board, not just in the general fund, but 41 new positions were approved and 45 were not. We have some additional recreation facilities that we're working on and looking at, but in particular there's a dearth or an absence of facilities in Portal because the Board of Education is sort of recommissioning their existing athletic facilities to be more full service for the students rather than the general population. But I think we have an opportunity with the Willow Hill Heritage Center to create some synergy in developing some recreation facilities and infrastructure there that'll be valuable to Northwest Bulloch County. And then, of course, you know about the fire station upgrades in Portal and Register, where we're still working on the master facilities plan. We're also escrowing money and want to continue escrowing money for future land acquisition for facilities, although a lot of it will probably center on trying to acquire some type of property for a new judicial facility. And then the in-house IT support that I was talking about, it's requested and it's going to be recommended that we have a position for that, so it'll be a good conduit between Georgia Technologies and the operating departments and offices. Let's see, some other budget initiatives. You see the master facilities plan quite a bit. When it comes to the judicial complex, a judicial advisory committee was formed by Chief Judge Peed. Although he'll be leaving us, I think Judge Mulder will be taking over and kind of overseeing that committee. They've made some site visits to other communities, and they're trying to talk about what their needs are going to be in a new facility. And we're hoping that we can do a sort of a one-size-fits-all, but something that accommodates future growth, because it seems that every building that we put up, it doesn't take very long to outgrow. So we're going to have to think prospectively about that, and probably when we add or expand new facilities, we got to think 20% beyond what the future need actually is, because we never know what the future will hold. Public safety complex is being worked on. We've got the master facilities plan across the board, except with the public safety facility, we can probably accelerate to some pre-design studies. And one other issue that you brought up last year was security, particularly for the administrative buildings. So as you know, we have a deputy assigned to both annex buildings. Okay, just not to be over redundant, but this is what was requested and what was authorized in the current budget year. And again, coterminous with the master facilities plan, we're also doing the county workforce demand study. So those two particular plans, and really along with the others, but those two in particular, I think will go hand in hand in really helping us determine what our revised financial model looks like. Although we have a good model right now, we obviously think that with the growth that's going to be spurred by Hyundai, the population growth, we're going to have to realign the way we do things. We may have to encumber a little bit more debt. You know, we're a very low debt county comparatively to the rest of Georgia, but there's smart debt and there's dumb debt. And I think we're going to have to engage in some kind of smart debt, whether it's through some form of general obligations from SPLOST or otherwise. So we're going to have to consciously think about that in the future. And the one other thing that we tried to do is address our fiscal structure in anticipation of trying to redesign our financial model. We put more money in contingency line items, which is good because I think they become more absorbed as the fiscal year goes on. And then we put more money into premiums and medical claims for our self-funded health insurance plan. And that probably turned out to be good. And you all know that we just recently approved some new vendors. Well, a big vendor in particular, Cigna Health. And we think we're going to actually realize some cost savings from that move. So I think the employee self-funded plan and fund is going to be in good financial shape, where for the last couple of years, it was teetering a little bit. Again, we've moved a lot of smaller capital purchases out of SPLOST into either the general funds or special revenue funds, because we know that in the future, SPLOST is going to have to fund larger scale projects, and we've got to make room for that. And then, as we predicted or suggested last year, as we did the millage rate increase and the other tax policy adjustments, we predicted that growth would occur as a result of Hyundai. So, and we'll dwell on it a little further in a couple minutes, but there's no anticipation of adjusting the tax rate that would result in either an increase or a decrease. We can do the statutory rollback rate, and as the data continues to come in from the tax assessor's office, we can make a general projection of what it's likely to be at the time that you adopt the budget. But if there's any kind of shift by the time the Board of Tax Assessors approves it in, I believe, July, we've accommodated for, any kind of margin of error, which will be small, because we've been in very frequent communication with the tax assessor's office, as we always are throughout this process. So, considering the general fund, so 50 positions were requested. You recall last year, 45 were not approved, but these aren't necessarily identical. There is some of them that are a little bit identical or similar. And the box on the right gives you the aggregate cost, which includes what the positions would be for salaries and fringe and other resource costs to support them, because just because you hire a firefighter at X wage or salary, you've got to get turnout gear and hoses and all the other needs and accoutrements they need in order to operate properly and safely as a firefighter. But subsequently, and again, this is in the general fund, because if we go back here, the rural fire personnel is in a different special revenue fund due to the fire tax district. But in the general fund, out of the 29, that with the budget review team, we're recommending that 23 be funded. There's a little, 23 between both those boxes. Yeah, that's correct. And then as far as compensation adjustments are concerned, even though, like I alluded to earlier, we are behind some of our peers in terms of wages, we're going to try to compensate for that as best we can by applying a 3% across the board increase recommendation on July 1st, and then give opportunities for merit raises to employees, which hasn't been done in a couple of years, and that ultimately helps stabilize your human resources system and to distinguish between performing and less than performing employees. Although we still do evaluate every year. Okay, so this sort of reiterates the additional positions in the general fund, the compensation adjustments, and right now, actually, we're projecting the rollback rate more precisely to be maybe 11.44, but it may vary because the tax assessor's office hasn't gotten through the appeals process yet. There's a lot more exemptions this year. So, but we're going to be in the mid-11s wherever it falls. But by rolling back the general tax rate, we can keep the amount of local taxes paid by most households essentially the same, and it offsets any kind of inflationary growth, or not inflationary growth, inflation on the assessments for properties. That's just a snapshot of what the general fund will look like. Please note that we're obligating approximately $2 million. That it comes out of what in governmental accounting terms is called assigned fund balance or fund reserves or cash reserves. And we think we have sufficient cash reserves to fund a slight planned deficit, but we also want to keep escrowing dollars for property acquisition if we need to do that in the future whether it's short-term or long-term. Going to step into the Rural Fire Fund real quickly. In this particular case, and everything is being driven right now by personnel and personnel needs, but 21 positions were requested, but given the dollars we thought were available, if you held the tax rate at 3 mils for the Rural Fire Fund, we could only fund 12 because they have other needs too, like facility renovations and rolling stock. But I think when we were reviewing their request on the BRT, what they really needed was boots on the ground, and we hope we're giving that. And then they needed a command structure that included 3 battalion chiefs, because Chief, how many paid personnel we have in the department who aren't volunteers?
18.
18, yeah. And they've got a lot of area to cover. And of course, going back to your priorities, we're trying to make commitments that are heavily focused on public safety without choking everybody else out. But the Rural Fire Fund is going to be particularly, well, not the Rural Fire Fund, the fire department is going to be challenged as population growth continues. And then they've got some bigger facilities that they have to try to protect that are commercial or industrial size, like the new factories, particularly on the 301 corridor. So again, we're recommending additional personnel. We do have some federal funds coming from SAFER for the volunteer support. And that really, the additional paid personnel is really not just a reflection on population growth, but it's also a reflection on the difficulty that we have in recruiting and retaining volunteers. When we got the SAFER grant, we had some goals to try to increase recruitment, but I think for every volunteer we're losing, we're getting a new recruit. That's kind of good, because I think we're still at 55 maybe. Yeah, but we can't seem to break through that ceiling of 55 because, the lifestyles of people today, there just aren't that many people who are willing to volunteer. And I will assert the 55 volunteers we have are very, very good. And, they do a wonderful job, but it can be tough. Some of them work night shifts. Some of them can't get away from their job to answer a call. Logistically, it's very, very difficult to maximize the potential of volunteers. But we're not going to quit trying. I think Ms. Lanier Jones has done a really good job in trying to stimulate interest and at least retain the number of volunteers that we have. But it does necessitate additional paid personnel. So I won't go tit for tat through everything because the rest is really resource and facility costs, but we are recommending maintaining the existing millage rate of 3 mils in the rural district and 2.7 for the city of Statesboro Fire District. Going over capital quickly, this is really just a list of some featured projects, and I think we're probably mid-year going to have to come in by the end of the calendar year, if you will, and try to reconcile SPLOST and T-SPLOST accounts. It's really coming in at a remarkable rate that we didn't expect. I mean, we tried to project revenues conservatively, but then when they're coming in or being received liberally, we get a little nervous with that as well, simply because we know that as an elastic funding source, sales taxes, generated by the consumers, and we know there are economic cycles. I mean, we've been over the years in situations where sales taxes can be up and down. So right now, I would probably argue sales taxes are peaking. I don't know how long the peak will be sustained if there's no adverse macroeconomic events. It could go on for another year or two, or as long as the Hyundai impact stays in place. But people are spending money in Bulloch County, and that's reflected in the sales taxes. So it gives us an opportunity to try to do some extra projects, but then in the same breath, we're trying to beat back inflation. Okay, remaining tasks before adoption. As I said earlier, we want to try to have a public hearing on May the 30th at 6 p.m. Ultimately, that's your decision, but it's a suggestion. And I think all of our other funds outside of the general fund have been budgeted, except we've got some reconciliation work we need to do and address the opioid settlement fund and the accountability court fund. And then we want to go through the numbers one more time, measure twice and cut once. And as we said earlier, the link to the proposed budget document, well, we didn't say it earlier, excuse me, but the link to the proposed budget document as we do make changes between now and May 1st will be reflected in the online document. And again, the overall general appropriations budget, when you consider general, capital, special funds, and the like, is likely to be well over $100 million. But I think as we inch closer to May the 30th, that our numbers are going to be hardened. So they're pretty hard now, I would think. But again, the remaining time that we have, we just want to be able to accommodate any changes. So unless Ms. Steinman or perhaps Ms. King has anything further to add, Mr. Chairman, you may want to open the floor to the commissioners or staff for questions or comments.
All right. Thank you, Tom, for that presentation. It's much more exciting than last year. With the, I'm going to open it up now to the staff. Is there any comments?
I think I would only say is that as we get it posted on OpenGov, dive in and look at it. You can see a lot more specificity in terms of what's going on with all of the other funds. I think the CIP will be in there. We still have some work to do on narratives, but most of the narratives that are in place are good and informational. I think we have to work on the chairman's message and the county manager's executive summary, if I'm not mistaken. But that may be the bigger part of what's left on the narrative side, right? And I think in the meantime, we've really tried to follow your stricture. We hope that the operating departments have given you the kind of information not only that we need, but you all need to make these very important decisions. But I want to give credit to all of the departments and offices and functions. And when I say offices, other elected officials, particularly who participated in the budget retreat. I think that's been a very successful event, and it allows you to really think deeply about where dollars should be put with the limited resources that we always have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions, anything?
Mr. Those projected expenditures under rural fire, it's like $4.5 million. That's items that, is that for like fleet or ambulances that are coming in
I think we're,
to be arriving?
That's just for their operating budget.
yeah, there might be some facility money in there, but we're trying to get most of the capital expenditures out of SPLOST Public Safety. including
Yes, all
rolling
of
stock.
the engines and other apparatus are in SPLOST.
And can you recollect, I sort of can, but what we're buying this year, or at least going to try to buy in order this year, as far as rolling stock? Was it a ladder truck, or are we already down the highway with that?
So we currently have 3 engines on order that are supposed to come in February. And then this year, we're going to try and purchase a used ladder truck because they have a very long lead time. So if our fire chief and his crew can find a used ladder truck, that is the plan. There's also a tanker to be purchased in the current year.
So maybe what you want to do, or to anybody else, you want to get on the OpenGov link and hit the public safety link, or maybe even rural fire. And then you may want to go to SPLOST and SPLOST Public Safety to see what's being purchased for, sheriff, EMS.
So right now, there's not a lot of detail as to what the projects are
Okay,
yet.
yet.
I'm working on that.
All right.
First, we had to get the numbers. Now I got to get all the details
Well,
where we can share them.
she has some elaborate spreadsheets.
I do, but
Yeah.
that's a lot to look at.
Yeah,
I can share them if you'd like.
yeah. Typically you import them into OpenGov or you export them out of OpenGov. I forget how that process works.
Both, yeah.
I've seen you do it. It's tricky, but it just depends on what kind of detail you want to look at. But now, most of these budgets aren't going to tell you, how many pencils we're buying or anything like that. And a lot of it has broad strokes. But I think when we get into the capital budget, we can give you a pretty good reflection of, kind of things that we're buying. And we are doing a lot of rolling stock. I think we're really going to push some resurfacing this year in T-Splosh. So that's why I'm saying with the flush of money that we're getting in terms of sales taxes, we're going to have to come back and revisit what we're going to do with the surplus or the excess that we didn't expect. We got projects. A lot of those projects have just been put on the back burner because SPLOST wasn't coming in as well.
Anything else?
I just like to thank them for all the work they've done. And they've done an incredible job from the retreat to what we have before us today. It's definitely good news. We got some things out the way. I know all the department heads have worked overtime to get it done because the main thing doing your job, what you was hired to do to start with, and it wasn't pushing papers. So I do thank every one of y'all for that. I know Dink's been going through a rough time with FEMA, and we've had quite a few conversations about that and the hoops that we're jumping through to try to scrape every dollar we can and put back toward our citizens it's really big hoop. And, it's done behind the scenes without any glory. And like I said, I just want to thank everybody for all the hard work, and I do appreciate it.
Thank you. And I'm sure the staff appreciates all of you and your patience and your guidance, because we couldn't have begun to have done it without that guidance.
Thank you again, Tom. Thanks to the staff. If there's no other commissioner comments, then, I'll close it by saying, again, thank you. I've been into I call it the budget war room a few times, and, they're sitting there, and it's like watching TV on a big wide screen, but it's nothing but numbers and numbers and numbers, and they tear those apart, and then they readjust. They tear them apart again and tear them apart again and tear them apart again, looking for the answer that they're seeking. And again, I just want to say thank you for everything that you do and your patience and trying to find the monies to do everything that we need to do with the county. And but having said that, if there's nothing else, I'm going to adjourn this meeting at present time. We will reconvene at 5:30 for our regular meeting. So this meeting is now adjourned.